Okay, let's get into this. We're doing a deep dive today into something that feels, well, ancient wisdom, really, but it's incredibly relevant for, navigating our lives today.
Hmm.
We're talking about thinking like a monk, drawing out these timeless ideas from the source material you've shared.
That's right. And the spark for this one, it came from this really powerful image in the sources. This
Mhm.
idea of selfless sacrifice, like planting trees, knowing you won't personally sit in their shade.
That's such a beautiful way to frame it. It sets the stage for a different kind of purpose, doesn't it?
It really does.
So our goal today, for you listening, is basically to be your guide through all this material. We'll pull out the key principles, kind of offer a shortcut to understanding how these monk practices can genuinely help navigate challenges, find purpose, maybe cultivate a bit more inner peace right where you are
And
now.
making it practical.
Exactly. So where do we start? The sources seem to point inward first, looking at how, the outside world shapes us. Let's begin there, finding your true self amidst all that noise.
Right. The material really highlights how much external things, what others think, what society values, shape how we see success, even how we see ourselves. Maybe chasing wealth because we think someone important values it, or changing how we look based on imagined expectations.
Like that I feel pretty idea you mentioned, where her confidence came from someone else's validation.
Exactly. It shows how easily we can let external stuff define our internal state.
And the sources use that fantastic metaphor identity as a mirror covered in dust. Sedera bara marginem.
Hmm.
The idea being you clear away that dust, the distractions, the noise, and you start to see your true self, your core values, even if it's a bit uncomfortable at first.
And that's core to monastic traditions, isn't it? Removing distractions,
Yeah.
material things, constant media input. It's all about creating space to focus, to filter out that external noise and see clearly.
Which ties straight into modern life. The sources suggest looking hard at how we actually spend our time and our money. That's the real tell.
Yeah, it really is. Are you scrolling social media for 15 minutes and calling it me time, but then saying you have no time for 15 minutes of, say, quiet reflection or meditation?
Or, dropping money on coffee every day but feeling like healthy food is too expensive.
Exactly. It's not about judgment. It's just observation, awareness. Are your actions lining up with the values you say you hold? Letting go of those false values, the ones that just fill space, that's a path to clarity.
And this naturally leads to looking at success differently. The sources talk about the Maya of success, this illusion built on material stuff and what other people think.
Right. And there's research mentioned, like that study showing happiness doesn't really keep climbing with income after your basic needs are met. Around 75K, I think it was.
Yeah, something like that. Beyond that point, more money just doesn't add as much to your actual well-being. It really highlights the difference between societal success, the money, the awards, and actual happiness. Feeling good, having strong relationships, maybe contributing something.
And it's interesting, the material notes that U.S. happiness levels have actually dropped since the 70s, even though incomes have generally risen. Researchers connected to social things like less trust in communities.
So it really begs the question, what are we actually chasing when we chase success?
Hmm. And there's that image, dig to the deepest WI behind the want. It's about looking underneath your desires. Are you really after the thing itself or the feeling you think it'll give you, like security or happiness? Or maybe, sometimes, it's just envy driving it.
It shifts the focus, doesn't it, from what you need to do to maybe what you need to be.
Exactly. Like, wanting a better relationship isn't just about planning more date nights. It might be about cultivating more calm or understanding or curiosity within yourself first.
That makes sense. Resilience comes from knowing that deeper why, and satisfaction comes from believing your actions have value, kind of regardless of the external results.
Yeah. Which brings us back inward to dealing with inner challenges. Specifically, things like negativity and forgiveness. We're social animals, and negativity. Well, it's contagious, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. So how do the monk practices address that?
Well, one suggestion is just becoming really aware of your own impulses. There's this exercise mentioned. Try tracking how often you complain, compare things, or criticize, maybe just for a week.
Ooh, that sounds confronting.
It can be. But the goal isn't perfection, especially at first. It's just awareness, seeing the pattern. Then you can consciously try to, dial it back a bit over time.
And digging into why you're feeling negative. Like, are you judging someone else because you're actually being hard on yourself?
Precisely. And the sources also stress mindful communication over just, venting. So instead of complaining to your friend that your partner's always late,
You actually talk to your partner directly, but mindfully. Explain how it makes you feel, maybe ask them to text next time.
Exactly. It shifts from unproductive complaining to something potentially constructive. Purposeful communication.
And the whole section on forgiveness is really powerful too. It talks about going beyond just, I forgive you if you say sorry.
Right, it introduces this idea of transformational forgiveness, which is rooted in basic goodness. Forgiving without expecting anything in return.
How do you even begin to do that?
One practice suggested is writing a letter of forgiveness. Not necessarily to send it, but for you, to understand your own pain.
So you list what the other person did wrong.
Yeah, get it all out.
Yeah.
But then, and this is key, you also try to acknowledge your own role, if any. And a big insight here is realizing that often the pain someone inflicts, it actually belongs to them. It's their stuff being projected onto you.
Wow. Reading that back objectively, you can see how that might help you let go.
Definitely. And this connects to that spot, stop, swap idea for negativity generally. Spot the negative thought or impulse, stop, take a breath, reflect, and then swap it with a different, more positive or constructive behavior or thought.
Like actively choosing to feel happy for someone else's success instead of feeling envious or critical.
Yeah, the sources suggest that shift is a real sign of healing, when you can genuinely take pleasure in others' good fortune.
Makes sense. And negativity often stems from fear, right? Let's talk about confronting fear.
Yeah, absolutely. That Buddha quote is stark. Fear does not prevent death. It prevents life. It stops us. Like the story of Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, dropping his bow, just paralyzed by fear before the battle.
So how do we work with that? Is it just about being brave?
Not necessarily just gritting your teeth. Meditation is suggested as a way to uncover the roots of fear. Sitting with that question, what am I really scared of? Sometimes seemingly small things, like anxiety about exams years ago.
Can connect to deeper fears, like maybe disappointing your parents or not being good enough.
Exactly, and the sources describe that moment of realization when the connection clicks as almost a physical sensation, a full body, aha.
Wow. And the sources also reframe challenges, don't they? Not as something bad, but as like wind.
Yeah, the wind that actually strengthens us. Like those trees in the Biosphere 2 experiment, they grew tall but weak because there was no wind inside. They needed that stress to develop strong roots and bark.
That's a great analogy. It's like facing difficulty builds resilience.
It does. Think of Alex Honnold, the free climber. He doesn't eliminate fear. He expands his comfort zone through relentless practice. He makes the terrifying familiar, using that discomfort productively.
And isn't a lot of fear tied to attachment? That feeling that we need to own things, control outcomes, even control how people see us?
Absolutely. The monk practice of detachment offers an alternative, viewing everything, possessions, relationships, even our own lives, as sort of borrowed.
That sounds freeing, in a way.
It can be. Shifting from clinging to temporary things can actually lessen fear and paradoxically increase your appreciation for what you have right now. Even things we think are permanent aren't really.
And looking back at life as a story helps too. Seeing past failures like a lost job or a bad interview.
Not just as failures, but as necessary steps. Maybe that failed interview led you to the job you have now, which you love. Hindsight allows for that kind of gratitude. And over time, maybe the gap between the suffering and the appreciation shrinks.
So the message is really about facing fear, not running from it. Because running just keeps it with you.
Exactly. Confronting it, like Arjuna eventually did by seeking insight, is the first step to understanding it. Maybe even seeing an opportunity hidden within it, instead of just being controlled by it.
Okay, so if we're working on fear and negativity, how do we actively train our minds to support this? The sources describe the untrained mind as a bit of a jungle.
Yeah, full of noise, random thoughts, just wandering all over the place. But the good news is the mind can be shaped. Like irrigators guiding water, or archers shaping arrows, or carpenters shaping wood, we can intentionally shape our minds.
How? What are the practical tools?
Daily routines are key, especially morning and evening routines. They set the tone, establish intention, and can really reduce that feeling of being overwhelmed. The sources mention the TIME framework for mornings.
TIME, thankfulness.
Right, starting with gratitude. Maybe listing 3 things. Then, insight reflecting on a challenge or learning. Meditation, even just a few minutes of quiet focus. And exercise moving your body.
And it's not just having the routine, but being mindful within it.
Yes. Noticing something new on your commute, even if you've done it 1,000 times. Really seeing that fire extinguisher you walk past every day. It's about active noticing, not just passive seeing.
The sources talk about selective presence, right? Only being present when things are easy or fun.
Yeah, and how letting ourselves be constantly distracted actually trains the mind to be distracted. It weakens our focus muscle. That's why single tasking is so important.
That Stanford study they mentioned is fascinating. People who think they're great multitaskers often perform worse on attention tests. Because it's usually not true multitasking, it's rapid serial tasking.
Exactly. It actually erodes our ability to focus deeply. Monks practice immersive single tasking. It's a discipline, something we can cultivate.
Okay, so that handles external distractions somewhat. What about the internal ones, those nagging negative thoughts? You're not good enough, that kind of thing.
That's a big one. And the crucial insight here is you are not your thoughts.
Say more about that.
Well, often those self-defeating beliefs come from unresolved stuff from the past. Old pain manifesting now. It can lead to repeating patterns, like always ending up in similar kinds of difficult relationships, maybe echoing issues with parents.
And the sources say only you can really heal that internal stuff.
Ultimately, yes. And a key technique is reframing self-criticism. Instead of thinking, I'm terrible at this, maybe try shifting to, I'm working on this, I'm improving. Focus on the progress, however small, not just the perceived failures.
What about things like austerities, fasting, silence? How do they fit in?
They're described as a kind of detachment boot camp, a way to intentionally push your perceived limits, physically and mentally. It builds resilience, self-control, strengthens the intellect against demands.
Interesting. It's like building mental muscle.
Exactly. Which leads us nicely into talking about the ego. The sources use the Sanskrit word vinayam, meaning humility or modesty.
And they identify that know-it-all attitude, the false ego, as a major barrier to learning and growth.
Right. It's important to distinguish the real ego, our sense of self-consciousness, from the false ego. That's the constructed identity, like paper armor we build to feel important, often because we feel insecure underneath.
Pride, as that old quote put it, does immense harm.
It really does. An unchecked ego makes us hide who we really are, put on these dishonest personas. And when you do achieve success, ego can creep in, making you expect special treatment, forgetting that fundamentally everyone is equal.
Like that Roman general needing a slave to whisper, "Remember you are mortal," during his victory parade.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or that funny grounding example of Robert Downey Jr. coming home after being Iron Man, and his wife just asks him to let the cat out. Back to reality.
Because that false ego, built on shaky ground, can crumble so easily when weaknesses are exposed, right? Life tends to knock it down eventually if we don't work on it ourselves.
It does. So practicing humility becomes important. The sources suggest things like doing simple, menial tasks, like monks washing toilets. It seems counterintuitive, but those tasks build character, ground you, and actually create mental space for reflection.
How can we practice transforming ego in daily life?
In interactions, say someone insults you. Observe your ego flaring up. Recognize maybe their negativity is their issue. Try to respond to the actual situation, not just react to the insult.
And receiving compliments.
Be grateful, but maybe mentally thank your teachers or the people who helped you. Share the credit. When arguing, recognize that the ego just wants to win, to be right. Can you choose instead to move forward, try to see the other side?
What about feedback? Ego often hates criticism.
Yeah, so seek feedback wisely. Maybe from a small, trusted group on specific things. Reflect on it. Ask clarifying questions to make it actionable rather than just getting defensive.
So real greatness, according to this monk perspective, isn't about status or numbers.
Not primarily. It's about depth, character, continually aiming higher, but looking beyond yourself, serving the community, the world. Like Bruce Lee focusing on mastering one kick 10,000 times. Deep mastery.
Or Kailash Satyarthi, the Nobel laureate who rescued so many children from labor but still felt humbled by how much more needed doing.
Exactly. The sources suggest real greatness involves using your achievements to teach or lift others, creating that ripple effect, that positive impact, seeing the value you bring to others' lives as a kind of currency itself.
And gratitude seems woven through all of this.
Absolutely essential.
Yeah.
The health benefits alone are apparently so vast, the sources joked it would be the world's best-selling product if it were a pill.
Monks practice being grateful for, well, everything, all the time, not taking even small favors for granted.
That's the ideal. It challenges that common human tendency to feel we deserve the good stuff, but that misfortune is somehow unfair. It encourages recognizing everything we're given that we usually overlook.
What about when things go wrong? How does gratitude fit there?
Instead of getting stuck in disappointment, one suggestion is to try the mindset. There's more for me out there. It shifts your energy towards future possibilities away from the loss.
Brother David Steindl-Rast's idea is powerful too. Gratitude as trust in life itself. Seeing every moment, even difficult ones, as a gift containing an opportunity, asking, what's the opportunity here?
Yeah, you can even practice anticipating gratitude, like being grateful in advance for the feedback you might get from a challenging boss, seeing it as a chance to learn.
And that salt in the water metaphor, I love that.
Isn't it great? The pain might be constant, like the salt, but if you put it in a small glass, it's overwhelming. If you dissolve it in a huge lake by expanding your perspective, your world, your sense of connection, the bitterness diminishes.
So be the lake, not the glass.
Exactly. And it's crucial to clarify, this isn't about being grateful for trauma or abuse. It's about focusing on the internal healing and growth that can happen through or despite challenges. Gratitude is appreciation for the whole complex tapestry of life, the gifts, the lessons, everything.
They call it the mother of all qualities because it gives birth to so many others. Compassion, resilience.
Confidence, passion, yeah. Ultimately leading to connection and meaning. A simple practice mentioned is just taking a minute to reflect. Think of 3 things others have given you. A small kindness, maybe a meaningful gift, or just something that makes your daily life better.
That sense of connection leads naturally into relationships, doesn't it?
It does. Viewing people as worlds to explore,
Mm.
recognizing we need community, like those redwood trees that intertwine their shallow roots to support each other against storms. Ashrams are like that interdependent communities built on collaboration and service.
And trust is central, but based on intentions, not necessarily perfect actions.
That's the idea. Recognizing someone's trying, even if they mess up sometimes. Though the sources are realistic, they mention studies showing how often people can be dishonest, which is why broken trust cuts so deep.
They talk about stages of trust, like a pyramid.
Yeah, neutral, contractual, mutual, pure. It's a reminder to let trust build naturally, not to just assume it or promote people in your life without real reason. And a key mistake we make is assuming everyone sees things or values things the way we do.
We see things as we are, not as they are.
Exactly. Building that mutual trust takes patience, commitment, really understanding the other person as separate from you, and believing people when their actions show you what level of trust is actually there.
What about initial attraction? Is it just looks or success?
Well, the sources suggest that stuff might create chemistry, sure, but it doesn't guarantee a deep, long-term connection. The body is just a vessel. Possessions aren't intrinsic to the person.
So how do monks approach showing love or connection?
Through presence and attention. It's more about energy management than time management. Quality over quantity. Being truly with someone. They also briefly mentioned the 6 loving exchanges like giving and receiving gifts, sharing feelings openly, offering food as practical ways to build connection.
And being clear about your needs, not expecting mind reading.
Crucial. Asking for what you want honestly and clearly.
Right.
Like asking for help when you need it. And again, self-awareness is vital. The sources argue you're not really ready for deep love until you understand yourself.
Because if you keep repeating the same relationship patterns,
It's likely a clue about your own unresolved stuff. Pain only you can heal.
and keeping love alive isn't about trying to recreate the honeymoon phase.
No, it's about creating new memories, continuing to learn, grow, and evolve together.
And after a breakup, the advice is to take time.
Yeah. Wait before jumping back into dating. Use that time to heal, rebuild your self-esteem, invest in your own growth. Kind of find yourself in the heartbreak.
Yeah.
It comes back to that spot, swap, or awareness address, amend approach for yourself and then for relationships. Which brings us full circle, really, back to where we started. That highest purpose, living a life of service. Seva.
Planting those trees.
Exactly. It's about the service mindset, giving simply because it feels right, because it contributes, without expecting something specific back. That's called satic giving. For monks, the motivation is purely selfless service, wanting to better others' lives.
And it's interesting that studies show people with less money often give proportionally more.
It is. And service isn't inherently selfish even if it brings you joy or if it benefits others in ways that also help you, like a parent teaching their kids values through volunteering together. The sources see it as mutually beneficial.
The key seems to be serving within your dharma, your own nature and path.
Yes, integrating service into what you already do. It doesn't have to be some grand gesture separate from your life. Finding opportunities everywhere, connecting your unique skills and passions to a higher purpose, whatever your job or situation.
Kailash Satyarthi's work fighting child labor, his call for a globalization of compassion. That's such a huge motivating example.
It really is. And the sources reflect on how One's own path of service might evolve over a lifetime, but that underlying sense of meaning and gratitude can remain constant.
So ultimately, there isn't one single plan handed down for finding peace and purpose.
Not according to this perspective. It seems to come from the ongoing work of training your own mind. How you focus, how you react, how you choose to respond, what you commit to, and when life throws you off course, as it inevitably does.
You come back to that trained focus, you recenter.
Exactly. And maybe the most profound idea running through all of this material is this. The world isn't inherently for you or against you. In a very real sense, you are creating your own reality moment by moment through how you perceive and interact with it.
Wow. Okay. That was quite a journey from clearing the dust off that inner mirror to planting trees for the future. We've covered a lot: finding your true self, redefining success, tackling negativity and fear, training the mind, humility, gratitude, relationships, and ending with service.
It's a lot to take in, but remember, this wisdom isn't like a final destination you reach. It's all a practice, something you weave into daily life, bit by bit, moment by moment.
Right. Which leaves us and you listening with a final thought to maybe mull over. If you really are creating your own reality in every single moment, what intention could you set right now, today, to start shaping the reality you truly want?
And let's actually take a minute for that, a brief reflection. Based on everything we've touched on, just think. What's one small, doable step you could take, maybe in the next 24 hours?
It could be really simple, like deciding to notice something new on your way home today, or catching one negative thought and trying to reframe it.
Or maybe identifying just one tiny way you could offer a small service or kindness to someone, even as part of your normal routine.
Just pick one thing. No pressure for perfection, just presence and a small intention. Let's take about a minute of quiet now for you to identify that one step. Pause for approximately 1 minute.
Okay, hopefully you have something in mind.
There you go. One step, one moment of choosing a slightly different way. The journey, as always, continues.